Well, that great left turn that we saw that forklift make in our previous video, is very featured in that previous video. Well, that was all facilitated by the upgrades that we made in the motion platform. So in this video, I'm going to explain that a little bit. All right. And most of the upgrade is kind of taking place right here as I kind of hover over the middle. Maybe you see a little bit of orange, a little bit of blue, and a little bit of green. And so I think this is much clearly shown when we look at it in wireframe mode. You'll see what I've done is introduce what I call intermediate bodies, and let me explain what I'm doing with that. So let me look at this from a top view, and you'll see that as I move the blue block, was constrained only to move in the X direction. You know, from this viewpoint, X is up and down, all right? Now Y, which is kind of stacked on top of X, meaning it's connected by its actuator, it's constrained, of course, only to move in the Y direction. And then our third degree of freedom, which will be rotation, you'll see we'll be able to do this too. All right, and I'd argue that this facilitates the complete motion, or at least a complete travel that's available for a forklift. You know, forklift travels on a flat floor and therefore really only operates in what I'd call a two-dimensional travel. All right, so anyways, let's see what this looks like on the Simulink side. All right, and you'll see where we before had an X actuation, now we have as well Y and rotation. All right, now there's still this idea of kinematics, you know, and the kinematics of a vehicle with, you know, basically 4 tires, 2 on each side. That's been very studied and it's very well understood, and basically we need to be constrained by it because in general it can't slide from left to right. Okay, and so anyways, this is this function here, this block, which is what I call the trajectory, or the trajectory of a turn. And I'd say that the key maths kind of show up in these trigonometry calculations. And so, you know, I think it's useful to look at this in PowerPoint. All right. Now, imagine, you know, what we're really looking at here is, I'd say the center line, what's called even the center of the forklift, this is the path that it would move through. And there's kind of this straight trajectory, then a turn begins. We start tracking kind of the movement through the turn through the angle theta, and that we see the relationship. All right, now again, just kind of imagine X is horizontal, Y is vertical, that the X movement starting from the turn will be R sine theta. Does that make sense? We got a constant radius, we got a theta, and it's kind of this opposite, you know, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. All right, and with a little bit more calculation, perhaps the Y is going to be R times 1 minus cosine theta. All right, hopefully that makes sense. All right, and as I go inside these blocks, you know, that's kind of why you want to come to a company called MathWorks, because there's a bit of math to do this. And so anyways, there's your R sine theta. It's kind of working off of a signal coming in, which will be theta. Theta's first derivative with regard to time, and then its second derivative too. All right, and again, just kind of for a constant R, the first derivative will essentially be cosine theta R, and that the second derivative will be a little bit more complicated. All right, so anyways, with that, we've been able to create the interface that we intended to. Let's see, I need to look a little close. But anyways, the parameterization for this path is pretty, I think, clear, which is how long is the straightaway, and then what is the radius of the turn, and then finally, what is the speed that will move through the turn, right? And so we've been showing you this trajectory, and this will be with a radius of turn for 6. All right, we saw that this was a safe condition as the left rear bearing remains in compressive mode, meaning that the tire is compressing against the ground and it's not pulling, you know, to keep the vehicle from flipping over, because we know that'll be impossible in the real world because the tire can't pull or grab onto the ground. All right, so anyways, that's our condition. We've talked about it a lot. And so let's do the new trajectory. And this time, let's just kind of play around with the perhaps variable radius of turn. So we're going to cut it in half, hit the run button from our animation screen. See that much tighter turn. And that weights to the negative force, which means it's pulling down from the left bearing. And we know that to be a indication that the forklift would turn over, it would flip over. Thanks for watching.